if you could test for hundreds of diseases with just a single drop of blood? No needles, no waiting, just fast, painless diagnostics from a tiny pinprick. Sounds like magic, right? Well, that's exactly what Theranos promised the world, and for a while everyone believed it. Billionaires, board members, even former US Secretaries of State. The company raised hundreds of millions, reached a jaw-dropping $9 billion valuation, and its founder was hailed as the next Steve Jobs. But beneath the black turtlenecks and TED Talks, there was one massive problem. It didn't work. This is the story of Theranos, a company that sold a dream, lied to the world, and fell apart in a storm of lawsuits, shattered reputations, and prison sentences. Elizabeth Holmes was a Stanford dropout with a bold idea. At 19, she told her professors she wanted to create a device that could run hundreds of blood tests using just a few drops from a finger prick. Doctors could catch diseases early, patients wouldn't need painful needles, and the entire healthcare industry could be revolutionized. It was a moonshot, but Holmes wasn't short on confidence. Inspired by Steve Jobs, she wore black turtlenecks, spoke in a deep baritone, and built a personal brand that screamed visionary. She founded Theranos in 2003, and by 2004 had raised $6 million. Investors weren't just buying into the product, they were buying into her. She was young, brilliant, and convincing. The pitch? A sleek box called the Edison that could test for everything from cholesterol to cancer using just one tiny blood sample. It was futuristic. It was revolutionary. But there was one catch. The technology didn't exist. Between 2004 and 2014, Holmes raised over $700 million from investors. She got funding from some of the most powerful people in America: Rupert Murdoch, the Walton family of Walmart fame, and even former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. The company reached a $9 billion valuation. Holmes owned over half, making her the youngest self-made female billionaire at the time. Theranos started rolling out wellness centers inside Walgreens stores. Customers could walk in, get their finger pricked, and supposedly receive test results from Theranos' revolutionary machines. Except, behind the scenes, it was chaos. The Edison machines didn't work. They were inaccurate, inconsistent, and limited to just a handful of tests, far from the hundreds Holmes promised. To hide this, the company used traditional machines from Siemens to run most of the tests, the very devices Theranos claimed to be replacing. Internally, employees raised alarms. Lab directors were uncomfortable. Scientists left. But Theranos used strict non-disclosure agreements in a culture of fear to silence dissent. Even board members didn't fully understand the technology. But as long as the money was flowing and the media was calling Holmes a female Jobs, the illusion kept growing. In 2015, journalist John Carreyrou of the Wall Street Journal got a tip. Theranos' technology might be a fraud. He began digging, carefully, secretly. It wasn't easy. Theranos had a reputation for crushing anyone who spoke out. They hired lawyers, including David Boies, one of the most feared litigators in the US, but Carreyrou persisted. He interviewed former employees, scientists, and whistleblowers, including Erica Chung and Tyler Schultz, grandson of board member George Schultz. What they revealed was damning. Tests were unreliable. Devices failed regularly. Patients received wrong diagnoses. And yet, Theranos kept promoting the Edison as a medical breakthrough. In October 2015, Carreyrou published his first article. The fallout was instant. Theranos denied everything, of course. Holmes went on a media blitz. She claimed the company was under attack by Big Pharma and threatened lawsuits. But the damage was done. Regulators began investigating. Walgreens paused its partnership. The myth was starting to crumble. By 2016, the walls were closing in. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, inspected Theranos labs and found major safety violations. Inaccurate test results had potentially endangered lives. The company's lab in California was shut down, and Holmes was banned from owning or operating a lab for 2 years. Walgreens terminated its contract. Investors panicked. Lawsuits began piling up. One by one, Theranos' partnerships collapsed. By 2018, the SEC charged Holmes and COO Sunny Balwani with massive fraud. The charges allege that Theranos misled investors about the capabilities of its devices and the company's financial health. Holmes settled without admitting guilt, but Balwani refused. Meanwhile, Courtrooms released a best-selling book, Bad Blood, exposing the full story, and Hollywood came calling. A documentary, a podcast, and even a drama series starring Amanda Seyfried followed. The public went from idolizing Holmes to wondering how she fooled everyone for so long. In September 2021, Elizabeth Holmes finally went to trial. The courtroom became a theater. Former employees, investors, and lab directors took the stand. Some cried as they described how Theranos covered up failures or ignored test errors that could have had fatal consequences. Holmes's defense? She didn't mean to deceive. She believed in the technology. She was manipulated by Balwani, who she claimed controlled and abused her. Balwani, who faced a separate trial, denied the allegations, but the jury wasn't convinced. In January 2022, Holmes was found guilty on 4 counts of fraud and conspiracy. She was later sentenced to 11 years in prison. Balwani was convicted on 12 counts and sentenced to nearly 13 years. And just like that, the dream of Theranos ended not in a medical revolution, but behind bars. So how did a company based on a lie fool the smartest people in the world? Holmes mastered the art of image. She spoke with conviction, dressed like Steve Jobs, and used buzzwords like disruption and revolution. In Silicon Valley, that was often enough. Theranos' board had almost no one with a medical or scientific background. They were mostly military, political, and business figures, brilliant in their own fields, but unable to verify technical claims. Big names invested because other big names were investing. No one wanted to miss out on the next Apple of healthcare. Due diligence often took a backseat to hype. Theranos ran on fear. Employees were siloed, monitored, and threatened with lawsuits. The company's obsessive secrecy prevented whistleblowers from being heard sooner. Holmes was featured on the covers of Forbes, Fortune, and Inc. She was praised as a role model, a genius, a visionary. When journalists asked tough questions, Theranos pushed back hard. This combination created the perfect storm. A charismatic founder, a secretive company, and a media-fueled fairy tale too good to question. Theranos wasn't just a failed startup. It was a mirror to everything broken in Silicon Valley and the startup world at large. It showed us the dangers of worshiping founders, neglecting due diligence, ignoring science in favor of storytelling. The scariest part? This wasn't a dating app or a social network. This was healthcare. People's lives were at stake. Imagine being told your cancer test came back negative when it wasn't, or being misdiagnosed with a disease you don't have. That's not just a business failure. That's human harm. And for all her ambitions, Elizabeth Holmes never delivered the tech she promised. In the end, it was all smoke, mirrors, and marketing. So what do we make of it all? Was Elizabeth Holmes a villain, a victim of ambition, a founder who believed in her dream too much, or one who never cared about truth at all? Maybe the real question is this: if Theranos can happen once, what's stopping it from happening again? Let us know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.